It's Dr. Glenn Vo, and man, I got the VIP, the man of the hour. I've been trying to get this guy in the group. Dr. Villanueva, founder of MB2. Dr. V, what's up, man?
No, everything's going well, man. Friday, can't complain.
Yeah, so I'm super happy to bring you on because so many people, they in the past, they've reached out to me. They're like, why did you join MB2, right? Why? I mean, your practice was doing well. You got all your stuff together. You're nifty thrifty. You're doing all those things. And I just said, hey, look, at the end of the day, I wanted an opportunity to get to the life that I've always dreamed of. And what does that mean? Being able to spend time with people like you, people like my family without restriction. And MB2 has like a unique ability to give our owner doctors a way to invest, to really grow their wealth there. And so that's why I want to bring you on, because so many people, they get bogged down with well, I can run my practice, or I can do marketing. I can do all these things. Yeah, you can, but do you want to spend all your time doing that? Or do you want to work with someone who has a lot of owner partners? They know how to get things done and also give you an opportunity to invest and to make some money down the line. So Dr. V, let's start. Let's just jump right into it. Let's jump right into it. You recently had a meeting with all the owners. There was like 200, like 100, over 100 of us in there.
Yeah, we maxed out the Zoom capacity.
We maxed out the Zoom capacity. And you guys are probably thinking like, wait a minute, Dr. Vo, your office was a 200th office. You guys had more. And you said, no, here's the thing. Most of the owners in the group, they have multiple practices. And I didn't think, to be honest, I didn't think I was going to open another practice. But man, after how everything is going so awesome with MB2, I definitely changed my mind. I've already talked to everybody. I was like, I want to do another office. But Dr. V, let's just jump right into it. There's a bunch of people on here. Guys, if you can hear us, if you have any questions, type in the comment section. I'm looking at the comment section. Ask any questions. We got the founder of MB2 here. But Dr. V, let's just go right into it, man. From an investment standpoint, right? Talk about what MB2 offers for all the owner doctors that jump on board.
Sure, absolutely. And then just to comment on what you said earlier, I meet a lot of doctors. I've met a lot of doctors over the years, and there's one universal truth. It doesn't matter what state they're from, what type of practice they have. Their goal is to work when they want to work and not work when they don't want to work, right? And I can tell you, we have plenty of case studies.
All right, so Dr. V, looked like he just the internet got cut off. I don't know what happened there, so hopefully he's going to jump on pretty soon. So we'll wait for him there, and I'll just kind of talk a little bit more about MB2 until he gets back on here. But yeah, so for me, the big reason why I joined is because they had the investment opportunities, right? And what he was just saying earlier about other doctors wanting to come on is that sometimes you feel like you got everything together, you can do all these things, but what is your life? What is your big goal in the future, right? What is your big goal? Your big goal is you want to have the life where you can spend time with your family, where you can hang out with the people that you like. You want to take all that stuff that you don't want to deal with and let someone else deal with it, but not just anybody else, but a really good person who can handle all these things. So hopefully he can jump on pretty soon. Let's take a look here. Oh, here he is. He's coming back. No worries. Okay, so Dr. V is back. Like I said, I was just talking to all our guests here that that there's different reasons why you want to join MB2, right? And I was just saying what my reasons are. A lot of people's reasons is because, well, you know what? They don't want to spend the time doing certain things. They want someone who knows what they're doing to help them with that so they can focus on different things, right? So I think that's what you're talking about. So I'll let you keep talking about that. And guys, if you have any questions, type it in the comments section.
No, yeah, absolutely. What I was saying is that, the universal truth is that as dentists, we all want to work when we want to work and not work when we don't want to work. And so I would say that MB2 is a platform that would get you there. We have dozens of case studies of doctors that have successful practices, are thinking about the future, are thinking about what they want to do next, and they find the optionality within our platform very attractive. You achieve that in a lot of ways. I mean, I think the traditional model is that we continue to work chairside until we get tired and older, and we end up selling it out to a successor per se. And at that time, you're grinding. And I didn't like the idea of being chained to the chair until I was 65. I didn't like the idea of having to work 4 or 5 days a week indefinitely. And so we found a way to create what some call a cooperative, where you're able to invest into a larger organization and invest in individual practices, which is really what makes us unique. Maybe what would help is just a historical reference as to like why we even built this model and why we even came to be, and maybe that will give people an understanding of how different it is from any other roll-up or corporate group, right? So historically, my wife, she's a physician. She's a primary care physician. She's internal medicine. And I kind of watched what happened to the internal medicine space. They went from being independent sole proprietors that had the same headaches, but also benefits of what we experience as private practitioner dentists. And slowly but surely, they started selling out to hospital systems that promised them the support. They didn't have to deal with HR. They didn't have to deal with billing cycles, but they came at a very high cost. They came at the cost of, frankly, autonomy, where they had to ask permission to take vacation, ask permission to change their supplies. And I just didn't want that for our profession. I didn't want it. I didn't think that was the right way to provide care. And so effectively, all we did was say, hey, Glenn, you're hiring Bob, the accountant, for $100 an hour. I'm hiring Bob, the accountant, for $100 an hour. Let's hire Bob full time and share expense, run more efficiently, right? And that's really the genesis of the organization. Like we no interest in owning practices per se, but we had an interest in being more efficient so we can compete against these corporate groups, right? I mean, in my estimation, Dallas was kind of the epicenter of where the corporate private practice battle started, and corporate groups were getting paid 10% more to do the same amount of work. They're buying cotton rolls in healthcare at 30% less. And so we as private practitioners, we were at a grave disadvantage. I mean, we couldn't really compete. The odds were against us. And so we effectively just created a platform, nothing else, a platform where private practitioners could come in, invest in each other so that you don't feel guilty when you go on vacation because you have an investment in each other's practice. But also, unbeknownst to us, we created a platform that was highly investable by institutional capital, right? And this came later on when we attracted institutional capital in 2017. And so from an investment standpoint, for an entrepreneur, I'm actually extremely risk averse. I don't like risk. I've never owned 100%. Well, I had my original practice where I owned 100%, but beyond that, I've never owned 100% of anything. I felt that it was a responsible, calculated way to invest in our profession by owning smaller pieces of many practices. And I think that resonated with a lot of the doctors. They wanted to own a piece of everyone's practice. And so effectively, there are two levels of investment, if you may. I mean, the first one is into the holding company, which is a very traditional approach. It's a parent company that goes out and partners with organizations, and every 3 to 6 years, it recapitalizes by finding another investor. And that's a very traditional approach when it comes to consolidating markets, right? And so that's available to all the owners upon every recapitalization event, right? And so that's one big piece of it. A recapitalization event is imminent. I can disclose that now that I've had my State of the Union address. I think it's pretty public now. It is imminent. Everyone who invested 3 years ago is going to be handsomely rewarded for investing into the organization. We plan to do it again in 3 to 6 years. And the other tranche of equity is at the office level. And so, every time we partner with a practice, we hand out the proverbial hat and say, okay, here's a practice in California. Here are the KPIs or the statistics. Who wants to invest in this practice, right? And everyone invests. And we actually have to limit the amount people invest so that everyone can participate. And in which case everyone says, well, I want to invest more. And I said, okay, introduce us to more friends then. And so it's kind of a self-propelling concept. And so that's a very interesting mechanism. I don't know of any other organization that does that. But
and that's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, that right there, I don't think any other organization that you could possibly join would allow you to do that.
No, absolutely not. And it's not, people ask me all the time, business guys ask me all the time, like, why? We don't need the capital. We're not stretched for capital. And I said, listen, it's kind of like in dental school, right? I mean, in dental school, we are all different, but all aligned at the same time. We're moving to the same goal. And so alignment is really the key of MB2. I mean, we're professionally, financially, and personally aligned in our motivations. And so when you see another dental practice join the co-op in the same town that you're in, you're actually very happy because now you have a personal investment in them. There's a minimum of 5% of the practices owned by the doctor co-op. And so we found that to be very powerful in creating alignment with all the partners. And so it's still something that is a cornerstone of our organization. It was one of my non-negotiables when I looked for institutional capital. I was like, listen, this is who we are. I like everyone being financially aligned when it comes to growth. We all go on vacation together. You get to meet the people you're invested in. And I have this theory that, you're about to go on vacation and you're about to meet everyone that's backed you. If you got that patient that walks in at lunchtime, you're more likely to actually see them as opposed to take some time off. And so that's my crazy little theory, but ultimately it really is powerful. And it's something that I just took away from dental school. Like we're all moving the same direction, right?
I love that. I love that. And I just got a message. I got a question here, and this is a question I even asked you, Dr. V. When I was thinking about joining MB2, my wife and we came to the corporate office. I think that she might have the record. Hopefully, it will be broken one day of how much time she took of you, and all the questions she asked. I think we were there for like 2 hours. I think like in the first 15 minutes, I got all my questions in. I just sat there looking at my wife and just answering, having her ask you questions, you answering that. So thanks for humoring us way back then. But I'm going to bring up a question someone messaged me, and that is, okay, so when this institutional capital comes in, right, and invests in MB2, and everyone is getting rewarded in this stuff, are they also expecting some kind of are they taking away the autonomy from all the members when they do that?
No, great question. And so before we recapitalized in 2017 with the first institutional capital, we had some non-negotiables, some things that we as an organization believed in and we weren't willing to compromise on, right? One of those is that I personally believe the quality of care that is rendered in an office is better when a doctor at the office owns the practice, right? I don't like these doc-in-the-box models. We have no corporately owned stores are simply associate driven. I truly believe doctor participation at the office, more like a joint venture, is a way to provide care. And so there's always going to be a component of ownership. That owner is going to be the one that's making the decisions for that practice, plain and simple. And so for those of you who may not understand the way that recapitalizations work, recapitalization simply means that this bank over here is going to sell their equity to this bank over here, a much larger bank with more capital. In that event, we as shareholders have the opportunity, but not the obligation, to actually to take a ride with them and take the same valuation. And so you don't have to sell, but at the valuations that they present to us, it's highly accretive. But even when you sell, you're always going to have a piece of equity at the office level. And that's really what doesn't change. People often say, well, if you keep selling down, then you eventually nothing. That's not true. We have a minimum floor of participation by a doctor. If it's not you, you can sell to another doctor. Yeah. But I personally feel strongly that every office needs to have a doctor owner in it, and it's worked out well for us all these years. In terms of autonomy, that is a common concern.
That is the biggest question everyone says, like, what are they telling you what to do? You're telling them to do this. And I tell them, look, you can message me in a few months and I will tell you. And the answer is always the same. No, everything is exactly the same. If anything, I actually harass them more. I actually harass MB2 more. I'm always like, hey, Will's our practice layout. And I was like, hey, Will, I need to do this? And he's like, yeah, sure, Dr. Vo, you know. And so the only thing that's changed is actually MB2 does more work for me, but everything is the same. Everything's the same. It's like having just a really good partner just watching your back, right? Just like, hey, just want to give you a heads up here. Hey, look at this, look at that. But Dr. V, I mean, you hear it all the time from everyone. They're saying, oh, you know, they're going to tell me what to do. They're going to do this. And especially after this recap and you get some extra money, that's not true. Everything stays the same.
No, it's funny because that's the exact reason why we did this, right? I think as many of us sit in our study clubs and our mastermind groups, we talk about somehow collaborating with one another, you know, without removing the autonomy from the office level. And if you think about our model, it's very similar to what doctors have been doing for dozens of years, right? We have a great business. You invited another associate grows up, wants ownership, and now you may be 50-50 partners or 60-40 partners, whatever it may be. We are that associate. That associate would never tell you what to do. You would never ask permission from that associate to go on vacation. You'd never ask permission to change your supply order. It's a mutual respect as a partner. And so as the leader and as a dentist, that's why it's part of our culture. It's like, I don't know any other way but to be a partner, right? Not to be a superior to doctors. And that's what a distinction between us and other traditional DSOs, right? I mean, what we didn't like was the idea of these business guys coming in, buying our practices, and then sitting in their ivory tower and then realizing, I've got a great idea. Let's open up on Saturdays. Or 60% of the population has periodontal disease, so 60% of your hygiene should be scaling root planing. I mean, it's that kind of nonsense that we want to avoid. And as a dentist, I know that every practice is different. Every practice is your brand, right? What works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. And so we're not here to try to squeeze out every last bit of profitability. We're trying to be good partners, and the decisions you make at the office level are your own, and you will reap the rewards and benefits of those decisions. I mean, one example I often use is there was a doctor up in Frisco that was expanding his office, and he was adding 2 more chairs, and he was adamant that they need to match his current chairs, which were really expensive A-deck chairs, right? And I was like, well, we get this deal. It may have been a nifty thrifty deal. We get this deal on these chairs with better warranty. You know, you should consider them. And he's like, no, I really want them to match. I really want them to be the same. And then I was like, man, if it's important to you, it's important to me, right? Yeah. It'd be no different if I was, you know, what the example I use is, let's say I bought a new printer for MB2. I mean, would you guys even think about questioning me? I'm like, no. You guys were like, we're aligned. He's making a good decision for the business, and so that's within his purview. And so I feel the same way about the practice. Like, people make the mistake of thinking that we buy dental practices. We don't buy dental practices. I back doctors. Yeah. I mean, you're 30 minutes from my house. I've never seen your practice. Like, your practice doesn't really interest me. What interests me is you. You are the reason why your practice does well. You are the brand in your market. And really, we're just here to support you. We don't want to meddle in it, right?
I love it. I love it. And guys, if you like what you're hearing, if you like what Dr. V just said, type in the comments section, MB2. And if you have questions, put those questions in. And if you don't want to, you want to be anonymous, message me. I'm reading all the questions here. And so one of the questions that come out, and Dr. V, if you could just explain it again, because I think they just came on, they don't understand. Explain again, what does the recap mean exactly? And how does that benefit the current owners of MB2? And then that's going to lead into why you guys want to take advantage of this recap. So can you answer that one more time?
No, absolutely. Maybe said it another way. I mean, I'll give you guys my 2-minute MBA, right? And so I'll preface this with, I'm a dentist first, I'm a CEO second, very, very far from beyond that. So the business guys try to make it extremely complicated, but really what they're doing, all these groups, whether they're the established groups, whether these new up-and-coming groups, they all do the same thing. They buy assets at X, and they bundle them together. They try to, quote-unquote, fix things, and then they sell it for Y. And that spread between X and Y is their profit, right? So what ends up happening is, on a recapitalization event, private equity groups can command a higher value for a group of assets, right? And so instead of trying to sell them a local burger joint, you're selling a McDonald's, and it's there are considerations that make it more valuable, right? Historical track record, ability to scale, the ability to grow, systems, leadership, all these things allow an investor to get comfortable with, okay, I'm not buying just Glenn's practice, I'm buying 200 practices across the country. The performance has been stable and astronomical, so I get I feel it's like a safer investment, and so they pay up for it, right? And so the investor that invested at 85 locations sells it to a different investor at 200 locations, a larger investor who can support the growth. And then all of us are benefiting from it because we can raise our hands and say, okay, I want to sell a little bit of my equity as well at this higher value, a value that is not available to private practitioners, right?
And that's really important that you need to say, because I've talked to some people and they're like, well, I'm just going to wait around, and when my practice grows, I want to sell it then. And I said, well, first of all, unless you have a crystal ball, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Number two, you're selling it by yourself. During this recap, I'm part of, before, when I partnered with MB2, I was Dr. Vo and Denton Smiles Dentistry. Now I'm Dr. Vo with MB2 with all these high level practice, great owners I work with. We're going together in that. Right. And so I think it's important that you brought that up, because people don't realize that multiple that you're getting, normal practices can't get that.
Yeah, listen, I've heard it all, right? I've heard people say, well, I'm not willing to share my profit, or they have this antiquated notion that when you sell, it's only when you have to and at the end of your career. If you take the time to look at the model and even ask the business guys to model out your future with MB2 and without MB2, I mean, I've done it 10 ways till Sunday, man. Like, we always come out ahead financially. So from a financial standpoint, I want to be very clear. There's no way a private practitioner can achieve the financial returns as they would within the organization, not even mentioning the sidecar concept that we've been talking about all the time. So from a financial standpoint, this is the spoiler, you always win within the co-op than on your own. I think the question is, and on top of that, you're taking much less risk, right? I mean, I think COVID has demonstrated to a lot of owners that, things can happen that we don't know. And you're 100% of the risk while you're taking 100% of the reward. Whereas within the co-op, on dollar for dollar, you're still getting close, if not more than 100% of what we do on your own, but you're only taking a portion of the risk. And so from a financial standpoint, it's a no-brainer. I think where people get hung up on, I saw this comment recently where they're like, well, it's a highly levered business and these DSOs are going bankrupt and it's a house of cards and things are going to continue. You're at risk for default. And what I would explain to people is that that's an accurate observation in a lot of cases where DSOs come in, they buy our practices they buy 100% of your practice at X, right? Then the asset starts declining. And so to cover it up, they keep buying more and more practices, right? Because there's still a spread between that and recap. And so what you do find is every DSO out there, it's kind of like a Ponzi scheme. Like, they just keep buying to cover their basis to get more debt to buy a new one, and then someone else is going to have to deal with it. Whereas at MB2, when a practice like yours joins, any practice, they never decline. It actually is stable, and many times I think the average is about 10% increase in profitability within our group. And not because you're working more hours, not because you're firing Sally in the front desk, not because you're changing your supply order, but because you're just having more visibility in your business. You're seeing a lot of best practices from actual practice owners. And I think that's what's so different about our organization versus a traditional DSO. We can raise that because we outperform every other corporate group out there, period. I mean, that's the truth.
And Dr. V, I want you to, on that same point, I want you to bring this up, is that obviously not every practice is a fit for MB2, right? There's certain things that obviously there's got to be an alignment, but also the practice has to be pretty much a high level practice. That's what I like about being in MB2, because all the practice owners in there, I'll just be straight up with you guys. They're all legit, man. They know what they're doing. They're not like faking things, saying, hey, I'm doing this. I got all these things. And in reality, they're really struggling. No, everyone is legit in there. But that legitimacy brings something, right? It brings the fact that, yes, every office, they have to be at a high level to join MB2. And because of that, they continue to perform at a high level because the doctors stay. They're not. This is not a, hey, I sold the practice, see you later, I'm walking out the door. No, this is a partnership. People are sticking around. I'm still. It's not like I'm retired. I'm still practicing dentistry. In fact, I love it a lot more now. So, Dr. V, talk about that, because that's a huge difference there than someone like, I'm not going to mention any names, but it's like, buying an office and then they chain a guy for a year and then that dude is like out the door, and then what's going to happen to the practice? Of course, it's going to drop. So talk about how that makes a difference there, about the doctors actually being partners.
Yeah, and so that's, once again, going back to my earlier example of hiring that associate and then them becoming an owner and evolving to an owner. Your practice has to be a certain size for you to get a partner. I mean, if you just open a de novo and you're doing $400,000 or $500,000 in revenue, great for you. It's a great business for an individual doctor, but that's not when you would invite a partner in to help you grow the business, right? And so just sheer logic tells you that you got to be a certain size for there to be enough opportunity to invite a partner into your business. And that's where, we step in to become a partner. Although I'm not personally providing the dental care, I'm providing a whole other slew of services, including increasing the value of your equity, right? And so there's that component to it. I think, once again, just using data, I think our average office does a little over 1.7 million in revenue, and we have a large swath. I mean, we have a practice over in Colorado that does a single practice that does close to 10 million in revenue. And what you'll find is that, once again, these aren't individuals who are trying to sell out. Our average age is, I think, early 40s in the doctors. These are guys who want to get to their destination faster. If they were going to open up a second location in 5 years, they're doing it in 5 months. If they're going to open up 3 locations in 10 years, they're going to do it in 2 years. I mean, and once again, we have endless case studies of this. You can talk to the doctors within the co-op. They can demonstrate to you how, once you absolve them of all the administrative burdens and HR and payroll and all that, and focus on the clinical care and mentoring other doctors and making sure the quality of care is superior to everyone else, then you really have expanded bandwidth and you're able to manage multiple locations, right? And so that's the real secret behind it. I always say that, we have people who are as good as you at dentistry, doing marketing, doing operations, doing all these things. Yes, we can do it, but recognize that there are people who actually went to school for it, right? Yeah. And so that actually reminds me of 2014. We're all sitting around our conference table, and we had, I think, 40 offices, and me and a bunch of knucklehead dentists were sitting around. We're like, oh, we got it all figured out. We're at 40, and I looked at them like, if I had explained how to do a root canal to a business guy, you think he could do it? And they're like, nah, man, you're dumb. There's no way he can figure it out. That would look like garbage. And I'm like, what are the chances that's how good we are at business? There's people that actually went to school for business, right? And so we put it to task. 2015, we actually had our very first business person join the organization and help us with data and just metrics and say, hey, this is what you're doing. You decided what to do with this information. We had a 12% increase in revenue, which was great, but we had a 62% increase in profitability, right? And so we didn't work anymore. We didn't see more patients necessarily, maybe a hair, but the contribution margin was much larger. And that's really the secret, man. I mean, yes, we can do it, but understand, when you put people on the right seats of the bus doing the right things and maximizing their time, this is what you get. And that's a philosophy we've operated under ever since.
I love it. I mean, that's so, yeah, all the reasons, guys, I'll let you know. I'll share you something a little personal here. Dr. V is probably the biggest reason why I joined MB2. Talked to other groups and whatnot, but I met him. I love his philosophy. I love his vision. And, Dr. V, you probably don't remember this, but we're sitting there and we were talking about like our little side hustles, right? And guys, if you're in this group, I have like a million side hustles. And then you looked at me and said, you know what, Glenn? If this right here, if you just, do what you're supposed to do with MB2, right? Invest in the Sidecar, stuff like that. That's gonna be a huge moneymaker for you, right? And at that time, I'm like, whatever, man, whatever, right? But after now that I've been in MB2, I mean, the opportunity to invest, right? I mean, we need to talk about that, the sidecar investment, right? I tell people you can invest and help grow MB2, right? You know, your own money. And what, you know, some people they invest in like cryptocurrency, right? Sometimes they play the stock market. We have a couple of people who think they're like real estate people. They learn this stuff on YouTube and then they think they can do it. But guys, everyone in this group that's watching this right now, you guys know dentistry. You know about office. You know how about that. What about an opportunity to invest in what you know? So Dr. V, I know we got all these questions coming in, but can you just go over that sidecar? Why is that so important for someone who, you know, yes, they're practicing dentistry, but you got to think about growing your wealth. You got to think about your end game. You got to think about what you want to do. How does that sidecar help people kind of get closer to that goal?
Sure. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned all the side hustles. You know, like many entrepreneurs, I thought I had the mistake of thinking that once we had a successful business, anything I touched would do extremely well, right? And so I've had a failed car dealership, a failed pizzeria. I mean, you name it. Like I've touched everything and realized, you know, this is my lane. Dentistry is my lane, and you guys have to realize, as dentists, I mean, we have a huge opportunity here. I mean, we're in the right time at the right place. The barrier to entry to invest in dental practice is extremely high. Anyone can buy cryptocurrency. Anyone can buy real estate. Yeah. Not everyone can buy dental offices in a market where the value is appreciating tremendously. And so here's a simple math. And without going too far the rabbit hole, you know, whenever private equity invests in a company like ours, their goal is to triple or quadruple their dollar every 3 to 5 years. That is the golden rule, right? That is a home run for private equity. So if you take, you know, $1 and turn it to 3 or 4 every 3 to 5 years, they've done their job. It's 20+% return profile, right? So we are, I mean, I can confidently say that we're beating those metrics. And so if you just use rough math, let's say you invested $200,000 into an organization, that becomes $600,000 to $800,000 in 3 to 4 years, and then you leave it in there, say one more time, that now triples or quadruples. I mean, that's real money, and you get preferential tax treatment for that, right? And that's often overlooked, and people are like doing their numbers in their head, forgetting that they're paying ordinary income on their day-to-day distributions, whereas investing it into an organization like MB2 gets you 20% more. Well, given the current tax environment, it gives you over 20% more, which I think is highly attractive. And so from just a financial standpoint, once again, there's no way a private practitioner, if you apply the same assumptions, can beat the financial gain from being part of the co-op. There's just no way. So I mean, a more valid argument is like, listen, I just don't play nice in the sandbox with everyone, and that's fine. Like, if people don't want to be surrounded by people, then that's fine. But that's really the only valid one.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. We were having dinner like just right when I joined MB2, and you and a couple of other owner docs, they were talking about like all these alternative investments and all these things, and you're like, what? Like, what are they doing with that? But here's the thing. I mean, you can invest on your own. That was a big drawing point for me going to MB2. Look, you can invest. You can do all these things. You can open a pizza place. You can open a yogurt shop or whatever. You can do all those things. But I mean, the type of returns that you get from the sidecar, I mean, you're not going to find that anywhere unless you just get extremely, extremely lucky. And that's like maybe 1 or 2 times. But this is something that's available to anyone who joins MB2, right? You don't have to, there's no, you know, the hat gets passed around, everyone gets to join. And I love the fact that you guys cap it because, I mean, to be honest, Dr. V, if it was up to me, I'd put in way more money. I'd like be pushing people like, dude, I want to put more in, but you make it fair. Yeah.
And then that's really, you know, once again, a cornerstone of the organization. I mean, to be clear, we don't need the capital, but it is in line with what we've built over the years. And that's something we've been having all these years. You know, I think the opportunity, once again, to invest in a dental practice is extremely rare. Like you would never have the opportunity to invest just, you know, $20,000-$30,000 in a practice in Alaska, right? Or in Louisiana, or these practices across the country. This diversifies yourself. I mean, what dentists forget is they think they've been working chairside all these years. They think what they're doing is a sure thing, that I'm going to be here in 5 years. You know, when the reality is, it's really risky when you have a single asset. You know, and I think one doctor said it best. He's like, it's like I have one restaurant and I'm the only guy allowed to flip the burgers. I'm like, that's a very high risk business, right? And so, you know, segueing into a comment I often get is like, well, Dr. V, how do you know that you're going to recap next year? There's no assurances there. You're not sure, which is true. However, as sure as you are that you will be practicing chairside next year, that's how sure I am we will go to market and recapitalize, because that's what I do. That's what I live. That's what I breathe every day. That's what I see. That's what I study. And so I would submit to you that the risk of failure for a single location and not performing is much higher than 200 locations, right? And so once again, it's diversifying your risk while still gaining a disproportionate return on said risk, right? And so that's really the secret behind it.
Now, I want to stay on the topic of the recap, because we were talking about that. People had questions about it, but there's a particular reason why I finally got you on here. I know Dr. B's super busy. He's meeting with the different practices every Friday. This is his day to meet with all these people, and I somehow just snuck into his schedule here. The big reason why I want to bring you on is because the recap. Okay, so the recap, you said, and you had a big meeting with all the MB2 owners, that it's probably going to occur within the next year. Now, that is a huge reason for those who've talked to me and they're thinking about, oh, let me think about it, whatever. I mean, how often does the recap come around where we get this opportunity to get even more money for our equity? How often does that happen generally?
Well, generally speaking, you know, performing platforms have a recapitalization about every 3 to 6 years, call it. That's kind of the general rule. If they're kind of not doing so well, it's longer, right? October of this year marks a 3-year mark for us having our last event. And so by any measure, we're doing extremely well, right? We're growing well. We're still very disciplined in selecting the right partners. But, you know, I think when we partnered with Sentinel Capital, they modeled out 20 or 25 locations a year, because prior to that we were doing 10 to 15. I mean, last year we attracted, vetted, and partnered with close to 80 locations. And even this year, even with a full quarter of the year gone due to COVID, we're still going to beat that number. Yeah. And so if you really take the time to understand the model, right, it's a really low risk model. If people are joining and they're not being told what to do, you're not disrupting the business, you're not, you know, firing staff members, you're not changing their EHR systems, you know, it really is a smooth transition. And what you were doing yesterday is what you're doing tomorrow, plus more support, we inevitably see an increase in performance. And that's our dirty little secret, man. I mean, we don't partner with turnaround opportunities. That's not what we do. What we do is we give a platform to successful business individuals to accelerate their growth. That's all it comes down to. And so, and once again, I think it would be harder to believe this 5 years ago. We have countless case studies of doctors just like you, mid-career, early career, who had the antiquated notion that they're only going to sell if they're going to stop chairside. Well, you gotta change that train of thought. You've taken the risk on your practice. You've built this thing. You don't want to sell 100% of it. You don't. What you want to do is be a mentor, be a leader, be the brand, and mentor other associates to the work under you and with you, so that you can continue to reap the rewards of the risk that you've taken, right? And with our help, build a second, third, fourth location.
That's me. I didn't think about opening a second location until I got hooked up with you guys. But so, you know, look, guys, I mean, this recap, I mean, you heard it from Dr. V himself. I mean, the last time they went through it was back in 2017, right? And it's anywhere between 3 to 6 years. But I told you guys when I made this post that I'm all about the hookup, right? Like when I found out about MB2, I hooked up one of my closest friends, and he has the Business of Dentistry group. It's Dr. Hoffpower, and he's an MB2 too. I called him up. I called a bunch of friends up. He was like all over it. Some of my friends, they still want to look around, right? So whenever I get a good deal, I want to hook someone up. Well, here's the hookup here. I mean, I might have saved you some money on some masks. I might have saved you some money on that scanner. I might have saved you some money on your dental supplies, right? But this right here, if you qualify, if you can get in, this is going to help you out. Because look, the recap, I mean, Dr. V, you said probably within the year, right? Probably
Yeah.
within the
No, absolutely. And you know, Doc Hoffpauir actually has a second location now with us.
Yeah,
he had no.
he knows
6 months, he found a second location. He had the confidence of owning it with our support, and now he has more equity to potentially sell down at the next recap, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really what a lot of entrepreneurs need to be focusing on. I mean, you know, not to belittle the importance of being efficient with buying things efficiently, but this strategy really hits the core of that. What you're trying to do is create efficiencies to create financial wealth so that you can spend more time with your family, right? And you can only work when you want to work. And so we found a way to do that. And you need to talk to the doctors in the group that have actually gotten there. We've got plenty of doctors who only work chairside 1 day a week, or if at all, and they really function as mentors to the associates who are highly appreciative of the opportunity. And then when those associates want ownership, we then buy them another practice or build them another practice. So the platform continues to grow. The original doctor who took all the risk in that practice continues to benefit from the practice performance up until he retires. Even then, I mean, a lot of doctors, they come on and they think that when they retire, they'll sell the last piece of equity. That's not true. What I found is a lot of doctors have found it. I mean, not to make an analogy to real estate, but it's very similar. I mean, once you've taken the risk and once you've put the associate in there, you've trained them, and if they're happy being associates, I mean, you know, one of the doctors calls it mailbox money. I mean, it just comes in, and it's a nice way to support your lifestyle, and there's no reason to sell it. And so you pair that with the enormous opportunity to make wealth with the sidecar economics and with the holdco economics. I mean, it's an elegant solution to an opportunity that's presented in our space that may not always be there. Number one, because of the recap, but number two, you know, you look at any other healthcare vertical out there. I mean, they went through the same thing. I think the saving grace for dentistry is that we are as much art as we are science, right? Unlike pharmacy, optometry, and primary care, where it's very transactional, you know, there's a lot of art to what we do. And so it's a little more difficult for these, I call them marauders, to come in here and penetrate our market and just flip us like investments. I think this is where we really excel. If there's an opportunity to appreciate our equity, I mean, I feel like we as dentists should be the first ones in line, because we're the ones that took the risk. We're the ones that see the patients. We're the ones that went to school. And I think that shows in our platform. Right.
I love it. I love it. Dr. V, thank you so much. And I will say this, guys, if you have any interest in MB2, shoot me a message. I can answer all those questions for you. You know, we have a lot of videos in this group if you want to kind of do a little bit more research, but I definitely wanted to bring the founder on. He was a big reason why I joined MB2. And at the end of the day, you know, we have a great community here. We lean on each other, and there's other communities out there. I'm in this MB2 community, right, of practice owners that we're aligned. We have this big picture. We want to change the industry. And then you have amazing mentors like Dr. V, right? That you can always, you know, ask questions. I message you all the time. Sometimes I wonder if I message you too much, because I don't want your wife thinking like, what's going on? Why is this guy messaging in the middle of the night? But that's what it's all about. So guys, message me any questions that you may have. I will put you in touch with the right people to answer your questions. But Dr. V, thank you so much. I know I probably ate into your lunchtime here, but thank you so much for jumping on here. And before we get out of here, what just some final words for those who are just kind of going through dentistry and they're like thinking, I gotta slave away until I'm 65 to really live the life that I want. What do you say to those people?
Man, I would say there's more options than the traditional DSO model. I mean, you know, first of all, the dentists run this place. I want to be very clear. My loyalties are with my doctor partners and not necessarily the investors. You know, we have an opportunity to preserve what we love about our profession. We do not have to sell ourselves out to these corporate outfits. that will manipulate our organization, our profession. And today maybe rolling up dental offices, tomorrow they're rolling up vet clinics, the next day they're doing eyeglass. Like, you don't have to play that game. Okay, you can stand for something bigger than a single practice. You can stand our ground and say, no, we dentists are smart enough, devoted enough, sophisticated enough to be in charge of our own future. And you know, I think dentists all think the same way. We just had the intestinal fortitude to do something about it. And so I would invite you to at least have the conversation, man. I mean, have a conversation with an open mind. Don't think that every group is the same out there. I mean, we feel what private practitioners feel because we are private practitioners. And so, you know, as long as the doctors are making decisions, I'm supportive of any platform, private practice or otherwise. Outside of that, man, I think we can do better. And so, if you have questions, Glenn's a great standard bearer for the organization. I'm always open to having conversations with my fellow doctors. You know, so feel free to reach out to MB2 or myself.
Dr. V, thank you so much. And guys, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys later.
Thank you. Thanks, Glenn.